Valarie, y'all. Good morning, Barbie. Hi, Ken. Hello, my fellow Allens. So I'm a great many things, depending on who you ask. Some are so nice, some are really, really complimentary. It's great. But from my perspective, I'm a mother of three. I'm raising three tiny humans. If you want to meet them, they're back there. You can inspect my craftsmanship. They're delightful. So proud. I once made a quilt, but they're way cooler. I have the privilege of raising those tiny humans with my very best friend and easy on the eyes trophy husband, Wenzel. Love our team. We're teammates, team parent. I've been a DevOps engineer for a few years. I transitioned to developer advocacy. I had actually forgotten the phrase booth babe. So thanks, Jay, for giving me something else to be irritated about. It's good for my blood pressure. So thank you for that, sir. I'm a devout humanist and a lover of all carbohydrates. So that's me, sort of in a nutshell. Hi. Oh, also, today is my birthday. Just for y'all kids out there in your 20s and 30s, I just want to make it clear, at 41, I'm 1 year away from life, the universe, and everything. And you could not pay me money to go back to being in my 20s or 30s. That was awful. Being a grown-up is the best, and I get viscerally angry when people lie to my children and say, enjoy your childhood, it's the best time of your life. No. If I want to eat gummies and play video games at 3 in the morning while ordering food, I get to do that being a grown-up. Check, better. So I transitioned into software a few years back. About 6 years ago, I was at the coding boot camp in Georgia Tech. And the week before my boot camp, I referred to my laptop as the magic box that holds email and other things. And I knew nothing about the magic box, so it was very scary to go into this boot camp. But I was very, very bored and needed to do something that wasn't bodyguard work or being a stay-at-home mom. That's the hardest job I've ever had. If you have a stay-at-home partner, worship the ground they walk on, please. They're the hardest workers we have. And so I'm there in the boot camp, and this is where I learned the word disruptive in the context of software, right? So every few weeks we'd have a group project to present. That was great. But there were, award categories where you could get specific mention for your project, and most disruptive was like the coveted win. And I was like, what is disruptive? Please inform me. So, in this context, it's, software that causes radical change, or, through innovation makes a market or industry look a little different. Okay, yes, that's sexy, y'all. I want to be disruptive, not just in the butting into your conversation sort of way. I want to radically change an industry. Woo! And I was very excited about this. And I truly believed when I graduated that I was like a pioneer with other pioneers, and we were going to trudge forward to uncharted territories and make settlements, and we were going to do everything, like ignore the status quo and make new and better. And I was very excited. So imagine my surprise after working in software for a few years and learning actually how desperately we all cling to tradition and the way things are done. It was very disappointing for me. And of course, every now and then we do see real innovation. We do. But I also feel like, for the most part, what we see is people taking an existing product or process, tweaking it to perform better, modifying it, maybe removing some features, adding some features. This is cool, great. We're going to call it innovation. But is it, though? I mean, it's iterative. It's cool. Sure. It improves things often, more often than not, I would say. Improvements, yes. But innovative? I mean, I may have been watching a lot of Project Runway with my kids, who are just fascinated that TV even existed 20 years ago. But all I can think, looking at the concept of innovation in our industry, I just felt very Tim Gunn about it. Like, I'm just underwhelmed. I've seen this look before, right? And this sort of makes sense, this lack of innovation. You can't rush it, right? I mean, sometimes it seemingly happens spur of the moment, this big innovation, but usually there's a backlog of events and circumstances and problems that were solved, and then that big breakthrough. And in the meantime, things just remain the same, for better or for worse. And so I think it's easy as an industry to sort of say, well, if we can't demand and force innovation, We can't really be disruptive, so let's just settle into this routine we've sort of been crafting since the 1950s, and we'll get comfy. But we could be disruptive, y'all. There is one way we can be disruptive that does not cost us money, it will make us money, and set us apart as an industry and as business folk. Trademark. We could introduce human decency into our companies and our industry. Now, that phrase, sometimes when I'm writing talks, I like to ask my children, they're my test group, I like to ask them, what do you think this phrase means? And just kind of, finger on the pulse of the youth and all. So I want to make it clear, when I say human decency, I think we all have like this mental image of the talking heads in a debate on the news, and they're screaming, interrupting each other's sentences, calling each other names, lobbing barbs, and then saying, that my opponent has no decency. Okay, so let's just take a step back, just in case there's confusion from the bad examples on the TV. Human decency is just a set of moral and ethical principles that sort of revolve around respecting the dignity, rights, and well-being of other individuals. That's it. It's fairly simple. And obviously there's a lot of qualities and behaviors and things that might encompass, and that's going to vary a little bit from culture to culture and context to context. Although I will say, the more I travel the world, the more I realize we are all exactly the same. Pretty much every human on this planet just wants to live a happy life, take care of their family, less stress, full belly, that kind of thing. We're all pretty simple, and I love that about us. I defy you to find a definition of human decency that doesn't heavily center around the word respect. And I like to know the actual definition. I never lean to my own understanding. So I'm looking up the definition of respect. And again, it's another easy, simple definition. It's just treating others with consideration, regardless of their background, beliefs, or characteristics. So we could just start with respect. Just start with respect in our recruiting and hiring processes, right? If we could just start treating everyone with some amount of consideration that is the same for all of us, regardless of background, beliefs, and characteristics, what would that look like? How would that make money for companies? Well, first of all, when you have these recruiting and hiring practices that do heavily take into account, whether by internal bias you're not aware of or explicit policy, you're limiting your teams. And my favorite example, there was an all-male, by the way, I love men, I'm not running on men, I'm not, it's not these guys' fault, but this group of men, R&D team, they were working on a pool float, it was then marketed by men. And they had some great ideas, objectively. They forget that rectangle, that's boring. Let's get sexy with it. Let's make this pool float an hourglass shape, right? They thought that was hot. And it was very, very pretty. And then they thought, well, we're gonna go with a stark white color because it's gonna really pop off of the synthetic pool blue. Yeah, they're on the right track. And then it needs some visual interest, so they put a blue stripe down the center. And it was beautiful. And if there had been a single person who had ever menstruated on that R&D team or the marketing team, they would know they spent millions to produce a giant maxi pad for you to get sunburned on in a pool. Which personally makes me want to buy it more, but I might be a little screwed up. So I think that's a delightful piece of Americana myself. But my $8.99 for that float is not going to save them from that poor choice. These homogenous teams with limited perspectives and worldviews. One of my favorite things to keep in mind, if I'm in a room of people who agree with me, all 2-1, I'm in the wrong room, and I want to hear things that make me uncomfortable about my own beliefs. That's, the discomfort tells me, the burning sensation tells me it's working. There's another problem with the lack of respect on the part of companies and their recruiting and hiring practices. So I am currently a person of leisure. I involuntarily separated from my company a few months back, like so many have this year, and I'm now job hunting. And first thing I do when I see a role that I think, well, if this is actually written by someone who knows about the role, and it is actually as described, I'd like to work here. So the first thing I do is go research the company. And I recently saw a role that, if it's actually accurate, that sounds perfect for me. But when I researched the company, I found a lot of variations on a theme in the current and former employee reviews, where people were basically saying, oh yeah, this place is great. It's the best place to work if you're white. Yeah, I don't want to work there. I don't want to work there. This is another example of a lack of human decency keeping good candidates away from your company and costing you money. Now this recruiting process is taking longer. Now you're without a resource for longer. And when you do get a resource who's willing to work there, they're probably going to be just like your other resources. And now we're talking limited perspective, limited experience to draw from. We're limiting what we can do, and we're not innovating. Empathy. Empathy is my favorite word. My children hate this word because it has led to some heinous disciplinary consequences from me because I do not negotiate. And I drop that hammer pretty hard. But I always try to teach through empathy building. If you hit someone else, I'm probably going to pop you a little gently, but remind you, hitting hurts. Don't do that. Do you like the way that feels? No, that's how you made them feel. I once made my child clean up a ridiculous mess because they started a food fight at school. And I was trying to explain, you made these lunch ladies work unnecessarily hard to clean up your mess, and now I'm going to give your toddler sister a bowl of spaghetti, no utensils, let her go to town and do her worst, and you get to clean that while I lovingly say, is this fun for you? Do you think the lunch ladies enjoyed that today? I don't think so. Empathy. We could disrupt this entire industry just by all of us, especially leaders, but all of us deciding, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try to imagine your perspective on this situation and treat you with respect and consideration. That's a huge thing. What does that look like? I mean, it looks like remembering that our employees, our resources, they're actual human beings. It does not look like saying, wow, we are making record profits. You know what we should do this year that we're making record profits? We should lay off half of our teams and have those people unemployed, and then take on more work so the people we have remaining can barely function because we're working them to death. That is not, in fact, if I were their mommy, they would get taken over my knee for that, and not in a fun way. So I recently, sorry, bad Valarie. So I recently had an article brought to my attention, because remember my trophy husband? He's great. He's that guy that's, he's awesome at reading all the things, and he's forever mentioning, and I read this other article, and I'm like, I'm dyslexic. Give me the Cliff Notes. Do it. And so he brought this article to my attention, and it was basically saying, your company is not your family. You are not our relative. We do not love you. You are a professional athlete, and we are paying you to be on 100% of the time in all things. And if you're not, we're going to cut you and replace you with a new athlete. And I found myself immediately, just hearing the description, getting angry and defensive. Now, I'm very fortunate. For the last 6 years of my life, Kim Creighton has been in my life. And she has helped me to realize that when I feel that angry, defensive, hostile, blood boiling, turning shades of my mama kind of feeling, I need to lean into it and figure out what about this conversation is making me defensive, and do I need to address anything about me, or is it legitimately angry making? And so I thought, why is this article pinging me so hard? Well, I grew up an athlete, y'all, and I did the best team sport ever for non-team players. I did judo. Judo's fantastic. I was on a team of 14, we all had USA. It's like the one time I'm blindly nationalistic is at sporting events. USA, USA. I love it. The Olympics are my jam. I'm so proud of my country, like once every 2 years. And so I'm on Team USA, and it's great because when I win a match, I get to take credit for that. I won. I worked hard. I trained 8 hours a day. I released myself from the confines of high school to train more hours in a day. And here I am, rock me like a hurricane. I win. Woo! But I still have a team around me to celebrate. But if I lose, it's not because someone failed to pass me the ball. It's not because someone failed to defend my goal. It's because I got strangled. I got thrown. I left my arm out. My bad. And I have a team of people to surround me with love and say, hey, Val, you'll win next time. It's fine. And as an athlete, this article really got to me. And so I started thinking, is this an appropriate analogy? I say no. I get what the author was saying. Your company is not your family. They have no loyalty to you the way that we would for a relative. Cool. My children have done some heinous things. I would never disown them, I can't expect that from a company. Fair. However, I started thinking about this whole concept of resources will bring their A game 24/7 and never make mistakes, and if you do, we're going to cut you. Is that what we do to professional athletes? No. When a quarterback rips out his ACL in the middle of a season, does his contract get voided? Simone Biles, arguably the best gymnast, male or female, ever to live, had the wisdom to speak up and say, you know what, I'm having these vertigo spells and I could die if I get dizzy midair and land wrong on my neck, and so I'm just going to back out of competition this one time to protect my resource. Did United States Gymnastics, did they stop funding her? Did they stop sending her to win our country medals? No, they did not. No. Wise trainers of athletes understand it's not that when people are injured, you pay them not to work and you just tolerate that. Wise trainers and team owners know you work to avoid the injuries in the first place. You keep your athletes where they can bring their A game by making sure you lower their chances of injuries. And likewise, wise tech leaders work to avoid the injuries of employee burnout, depression, substance abuse, sleep deprivation, meeting fatigue, all the things, all of the injuries that make us not be able to innovate. Because spoiler alert, innovation usually doesn't come in an Iron Man, we've thrown you in a cave and we're forcing you to build something, go. That usually doesn't work that way. That's you get B or C level game there. The ability to innovate comes with stress reduction. Feeling safe, psychologically, physically, feeling appreciated, things that we take for granted that aren't a part of our industry on the scale they ought to be. So now I realize I sort of love that article. I do. It made me think. It made me, my heart pounded from the anger, which is great. It's going to increase my life. Yay, thanks. But again, in our industry, how disruptive would it be for us to say, you know what, we're going to stop letting people go when we don't need to. We're going to stop arbitrarily expecting these things. We're going to recognize as leaders, it's our job to protect our athletes from injury and help them to bring that A game and then celebrate it when it does happen. I feel silly right now being up here saying, I want to take pride in my work. I want to be proud of my company for being morally and ethically sound, and human decency matters in business. I feel ridiculous because just in the month of October, how many lives have we lost in this world because leaders in other contexts forgot human decency? We are globally going through a lot of loss because these concepts aren't being taught to children in the way they should be and enforced. And we have a planet where a significant percentage of us forget that whether it's, our family in our homes, a direct report during a one-on-one, whether you're in a boardroom or a war room, whether you're at a conference, just meeting a stranger in the hallway track, human decency, the way that we comport ourselves with our interactions, having consideration for those around you, respect for them, regardless of perceived background, perceived beliefs, perceived characteristics, because you don't necessarily know. How different could this world be? As much as I love to talk, I would really appreciate it if we could take 5 seconds and just take one big cleansing breath together and remember what a loss of human decency has cost us in lives just this month. Thank y'all for being here today, for being at a conference that tries to put people above anything else. Thank you so much. Please try to remember a couple of things. One, being on this rock, hurtling through an ever-expanding multiverse is really only worth the ride because of the people on the ride with us. And to quote a couple of famous philosophers from when I was a child back, before the turn of the century, be excellent to each other. And the money will follow. Thank you.